no matter who you are, when you're a kid, you're going to play some games that are going to stick with you, that'll leave a really lasting impression with you as you grow up. It's for a whole different number of reasons. Maybe you just really loved the game and you played it over and over again. Or you were playing it during a time that was really important in your life and it just sticks with you because it's tied to that moment. Whatever the reason, there's going to be a handful of games that mean a little bit more to you than others. For me, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening is definitely one of those games. I don't know why I remember everything about it so well. It's just one of those experiences that truly stuck with me. I think it might have something to do with the fact that I was playing a portable Zelda, because this was the first portable Zelda, and it just blew my mind that I could have a full Zelda experience in the palm of my hands on the Game Boy. I played it right when it came out. I believe I got it as a birthday present. I vividly remember being at Toys R Us back when they had their giant wall of games, and I pulled out the little slip and was looking at it and showed it to my mom. And my mom, who is a Zelda fan, was like, "Oh, I didn't know this was a thing." And I got the game, brought it home, and just fell in love with it instantly. It felt like a real Zelda game, even though it was on a teeny tiny screen. And all these years later, here I am again playing Link's Awakening on a portable, and man, is it making those memories rush back. I think the really important thing to point out here is my time with Link's Awakening so far has shown that Nintendo really understands what made Link's Awakening so endearing and charming when it originally came out, and they've taken those elements and just enhanced them, or in some cases haven't touched them at all because they know it's important to keep things the same for players who love the experience the first time around. So it's a mix of those two things, and the end result so far is pretty fantastic. Now, I'm an old fogey, like I said. I already played Link's Awakening back when it came out on the Game Boy, but there's potentially going to be millions of people that are playing Link's Awakening for the very first time through this Switch version, and I think that's going to lead to some really interesting discussions, because I would imagine a lot of those people are more familiar with 3D Zelda titles. Those are the ones that they played. I mean, there's a lot of people who say Ocarina of Time is their first Zelda game, and they haven't really dabbled in the old ones. And then on top of that, Breath of the Wild was really a breakout hit for the Legend of Zelda franchise and brought in a whole bunch of new players. So some of those people are going to say, hey, I like The Legend of Zelda. I'm a Legend of Zelda fan now, and Link's Awakening is coming out, so I'm going to check out that game. And that's why I think there's going to be a lot of interesting discussion, because Link's Awakening is a much more old school, classic style Zelda game, and those have a very different feel from the 3D games of today. It's much more rigid. It's going to feel a lot smaller. It's going to feel like there isn't as much to do. There's certainly not as many options for like how you can approach situations. It's, puzzles are pretty much solved one or two ways, and enemies are taken out maybe one or two ways, and that's really all there is to it. And I don't mean that as a knock. This is a Zelda game from a different time. But with that said, Link's Awakening always stuck out to many fans who played it back on a Game Boy because it had a really interesting, unique vibe to it. It doesn't quite feel like other Zelda games, and that's not because it doesn't have the same mechanics, it just has an overall feeling to it. There's a way that the characters interact, and there's a way that just the game plays out that feels different. I can't get into certain things because of spoilers and because of embargo, and I wouldn't want to because that would take away from the experience, but just overall, it's a very quirky Zelda game, and sometimes it's silly quirky, and sometimes it's serious quirky, but it all boils down to a Zelda experience that's not really like any others, and that's what's made me so fond of it. The developers on Link's Awakening, when it originally came out, have said that it was their chance to really do some kooky things with the franchise because it was their first portable installment, so they were a little bit more free. They had a chance to try some things out. I mean, like I said, it's a little bit weird. There's Mario enemies and enemies from other Nintendo franchises that pop up in this game. Goombas are here, piranha plants are here, a whole bunch of other stuff like that. Stuff you just wouldn't expect to see nowadays because it just, isn't part of Zelda lore. But with this game, Link's Awakening, they kind of did what they wanted, and that is something I really respect. They were like, hey, now's our chance to go a little bit outside of the box and make something a little bit that has a little bit of a different vibe, and it certainly comes through. But if you are a fan of classic Zelda games as far as puzzles and exploration goes, then you're going to love Link's Awakening. To tell you the truth, like I said, I remember a lot of this game. A lot of this game. But I don't remember every room of every dungeon, and I don't remember every screen or every nook and cranny. I have an overall idea of how everything plays out. But I have to say, the dungeon elements really stand the test of time. There's some very unique dungeon designs in this game. It surprised me. I have memories of a couple, very specifically, from when I was a kid that gave me some trouble back in the day. I was a young kid, come on. But they, playing them now, I'm like, oh man, these are really well thought out dungeons. They don't have, a traditional layout. They make you do things a little bit differently. And there's some unique ways of progression through them. I really am impressed at how well the designs stand up today. And again, it goes to show this game was pretty different for the Legend of Zelda franchise when it came out, and those different elements have remained different to this day. There's also something to be said for the feeling of going back to a very classic style Zelda game after Breath of the Wild. Like I said, there's going to be a bit of culture shock for a few players, I'm sure. But it's a little bit of a humbling experience to go back and see. I don't want to say where the series started, but where the series was still figuring things out, especially when it came to the portable side of things. This was the first portable installment. But to see how building blocks are there for the next steps in the franchise and ideas that were being tested out for mechanics that would play out in a bigger way later on down the line. It's a quaint experience, and again, I don't mean that as a negative. I mean it as a positive. It's fun to go back and see. Although the visuals and sound are much better in Link's Awakening, the gameplay mechanics are pretty much the same. It's fun to see how the developers played within the limitations of the hardware that they were working on at the time, as well as the limitations of the Legend of Zelda franchise, or at least the self-imposed limitations, because with each installment in the Legend of Zelda, the developers challenged themselves to present something new, unique, and different, and I think that's very true. Some people might say some games are better than others, and that's a debate for another day, but I think we can all agree that Nintendo has gone out of their way to make sure that they constantly evolve the Legend of Zelda franchise, sometimes in small ways and sometimes in big ways. And going back to Link's Awakening through this remake really shows how far the franchise has come. But it also drives home the point that the game, even when it was a more simpler experience, was still ridiculously fun, because we wouldn't have gotten to where we are now with the Legend of Zelda franchise if it didn't start out all those years ago and catch on. I hope you've enjoyed this overall discussion of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, both the original and the new one that's coming out. I also hope you enjoyed watching this new gameplay footage that you're watching right now. That's me playing. Hopefully I'm not showing something that's too embarrassing. Obviously I can't talk about more because I'm under embargo, but when the embargo lifts I will have my full review. There will be a written review and a video review. I really look forward to talking about the game with you in detail, but I just wanted to give you something to enjoy as far as gameplay footage goes, and a little bit of preview of my time with the game, and just a discussion about Link's Awakening in general, because I feel it's important to cover before we get into the full-on review. So I hope you found all of it entertaining. I really enjoyed putting it together, and I can't wait to tell you more. That's it for today's video. Thanks very much for watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting. It's very much appreciated. Also, a huge thank you to our gang over on Patreon. Thank you so much for supporting me. I really, truly appreciate it. You guys doing what you do on Patreon lets me do what I do, like videos like this, and the Facebook, and the Twitter, and the podcast, and GoNintendo.com in general. Thank you so much. It honestly is very humbling to have your support. If you want to know more about the Patreon, you can check out the link in the description below. But as for today, that is it. I'll be back tomorrow with some sort of video. So until then, have a lovely day and a lovely evening, and I'll see you in a few short hours.